My coffee was just reaching that perfect, dark roast temperature when the doorbell rang. I had a rare, blissful Saturday morning off, and the last thing I expected was to see a woman in a floral sundress. A woman I immediately recognized as the neighborhood's self-appointed homeowners association warden, standing on my porch with two scrawny, awkward guys in ill-fitting tactical gear. She didn't even give me a chance to say a word. "Mr. Harrison," she announced, her voice a grating, high-pitched whine. "We're here to confiscate your firearms. It's a matter of public safety, and frankly, a clear violation of the homeowners agreement." I felt a slow, simmering heat spread through my chest. Are you kidding me? This woman was trying to tell me what I could and couldn't own, and these two clowns behind her were supposed to be the muscle? I just stood there, the cool metal of the doorknob grounding me as I took a deep, steadying breath. "And who exactly are you two supposed to be?" I asked, my voice calm, flat, but with a slight edge that I've learned over decades of professional work to hide. The first guy, with a 5 o'clock shadow that seemed glued on, puffed out his chest. "We're with the Private Security Patrol. We're deputized to enforce community standards." I suppressed a laugh. Deputized? To enforce community standards? The words alone were so ludicrous they almost felt like a parody. My eyes scanned their gear. No official patches, no police radio, and their sidearms stuck into flimsy nylon holsters looked less like standard-issue equipment and more like something you'd find at a flea market. One of them kept shifting his weight, his gaze darting nervously to the street. He couldn't even meet my eyes. My mind, a database of training and instinct honed by 100 real-life situations, was already running scenarios. My initial anger had already been replaced by a cold, calculating professional detachment. My porch suddenly felt like a sterile, silent observation post. The Karen, I swear. Her name was probably something like Bethany or Heather, but in my head, she was just the Karen stepped forward, her face a mask of self-righteous indignation. "We received a tip that you possess several highly dangerous weapons," she said, her voice dripping with judgment, as if I were some kind of common criminal. "It's the HOA's responsibility to ensure a safe environment for our children." I could practically feel her smugness. She thought she had me, but what she didn't know was that my house was my sanctuary, my fortress. The subtle vibrations of my vintage grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, the faint scent of cinnamon from the coffee maker, the way the afternoon sun slanted across the polished wood floor, all of it felt more important than ever. My peace was being disturbed, and my internal clock was ticking. "I'm sorry, but you need a warrant for that," I stated, the words coming out as a simple, undeniable fact. The guy with the fake shadow got a little bolder, his voice cracking. "Look, buddy, we don't have time for this. Just hand over the rifles and we can all go about our day." Rifles. He couldn't even get the word right. I hadn't even mentioned my long guns. He was assuming. Amateur. I took a half step back, my hand resting just inside the doorframe. My gaze drifted past the two wannabes to the car parked out front, a beat-up sedan with a generic magnetic security sign stuck to the side. They weren't just fakes. They were cheap fakes. I had been in the business long enough to know the difference between a real threat and a bad joke. My heartbeat was steady, but I felt a small smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. Plan was forming. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper, a tone I knew could command attention better than a shout. "You're going to seize my property without a warrant, based on a tip, and you're doing this under the guise of private security?" I let the silence hang for a moment, letting my words sink in. The first fake cop's bravado visibly wilted. The Karen, however, was undeterred. "It's for the good of the community, sir. Just open the door." I sighed, a slow, theatrical exhale. "All right, one moment." I turned my back to them for a split second, reaching for my phone on the table just inside. This is our 37. Echo. I have a 10 to 53 in progress at my location. 2 unauthorized individuals attempting a seizure. Requesting an immediate 10 to 85. I kept my voice low, but the words echoed in the small space. I glanced over my shoulder, just in time to see the 2 fakes' faces turn to stone. Their eyes went wide. They knew what those codes meant. They were real codes. The kind you don't just find on the internet. Panic set in. The one with the flimsy holster reached for his partner's arm, his eyes pleading. "Dude, no." He muttered under his breath, barely audible. "She didn't tell us he was, you know." My smile widened. This was my favorite part. "Didn't tell you I was what?" I asked, stepping back inside and finally pulling the door open wide, gesturing them in. "Let me show you where I keep my rifles." My home's main hallway led directly to my study, where a framed certificate hung prominently on the wall. The words United States Marine Corps and SWAT Sniper were emblazoned on it, right next to a shadow box containing a Purple Heart and my official service pistol. The 2 fakes froze in their tracks, their faces drained of all color. Their eyes darted from my service awards to me, then back again. I could feel the Karen's confusion behind them as she finally fell silent. It was beautiful. "You boys have a choice," I said, stepping past them and leaning against the doorframe, my arms crossed. "You can wait for the real cops to show up, or you can get back in your car and pretend this never happened." The 2 fakes didn't even hesitate. The one with the bad facial hair practically tripped over his own feet trying to get off my porch, his partner right behind him. The Karen was left standing there alone, her mouth agape. "What's wrong with them?" she finally stammered, her voice now a whimper. I just shook my head. "Nothing's wrong with them," I said, my voice soft but firm. "They just realized they messed with the wrong house." The sound of real sirens, growing louder in the distance, put the final, perfect punctuation mark on the scene. She got her comeuppance, not with a fight, but with the cold, hard reality of professional expertise. I just stood there, watching the squad cars pull up, a sense of deep, abiding justice settling in my chest. The shotguns in my safe were a last resort. My real weapon was the training, the discipline, and the quiet knowledge that some fights aren't about brute force, but about being 2 steps ahead of a fool with a bad idea.